Welcome to the first video of 2023. This year is gonna be great. We'll learn and practice so many things. I hope you are ready for the new year. Today we will do a full trade recap for day traders and scalpers. It will be an extremely detailed video with a top-down analysis. You'll learn about double ranges, mitigation block, imbalances, liquidity hunts, trap hunting, and so on. We have so much to cover. If you're ready, let's start. Welcome our free trading course, all about price action trading strategies and smart money concepts. With this video, I'll cover the basics of range trading. If you are looking for a structured table of contents, I set it up for you. You can find it on Google Drive or directly from my website, which is in the description. It is important to watch videos in order, so you will not miss anything. Okay folks, many will see a big confusion and a bunch of ugly candlesticks when they look at this chart. What I see is just pure beauty. You remember our previous range that we traded at least 10 times? Now that range is broken. Remember the purpose of ranges. The sole and the only reason for price ranging is to accumulate orders and start a new price movement. This range is broken downwards. I think this is not a surprise with all the weakness of cryptocurrencies, scandals, and bankruptcies. Now let's open our 15 minutes chart to work on this part, because we start to have a new range right here. Okay, when I saw this price action without seeing the rest, I was focusing on the EQ point of the range. And this was a very ideal range at the beginning. Nothing wrong with it. However, in time, the ranges expanded in my mind. I was looking at the price action and said to myself, it looks like there is a double range here, range in range. As you remember, every single trader will draw ranges differently. There is no rule for range drawing. To be honest, I still experiment with ranges after all those years. Now, what interested me about this part? Use the smaller range or use the bigger range. Whatever you do. This area was an extremely expensive area for both ranges. A very ideal place to look for trades. But we never jump to trades without confirmation. Okay, in my mind, I was thinking, how can I trade this? These equal highs was extremely critical for me. I waited for those to be hunted. This is a classic trap. We need to be careful around these. Once I saw these equal highs hunted, I had to enter a trade right here. However, obviously, this was an extremely quick move, and I did not have any limit order set. I do not think many got this trade. This was a very quick action. So, what is at the bottom? The large imbalance. Once I see the large imbalance, I always get excited. Gives me clues. I also noticed that this liquidity was forming nicely. All these give me more and more reasons to short the asset. Let's count what we have here. Hunted equal highs, pure swing failure pattern, range premium area, forming liquidity below, and the giant imbalance below. You see, I'm creating reason after reason to short the Bitcoin. Here's a quick tip for you. Always ask yourself, why would I short or long this asset? Does it have any clear targets? Is it expensive or cheap? Do I have any low time frame confirmations to enter the trade? So, you need to question each trade before taking it. Now let's focus on this part in a 5-minute chart and see what we have. Once I saw this candlestick at the bottom, I immediately identified it. Breaker block. As I said to you before, somehow breaker blocks and mitigation blocks work really well with ranges. Now I have an extremely clear target here. Large imbalance, breaker block, and the formed liquidity below. Very classic range setup. Actually, this was an amazing long setup as well. I knew that price was going to bounce from here. How did I know? Because I saw this setup over 1,000 times. Probably 800 times it bounces. Now, this is an experience that you cannot find anywhere. You need to see and leave the charts to get the experience. I cannot teach you this. You must live it and see it yourself 1,000 times. We have a remarkable target below. Great. How about the entry? You can see this forming liquidity. This is engineered mostly, preparing the price to fall. We need more and more fuel to make a counter movement. Here is another approach for you. You remember the optimal trade entry in ranges? Drawn from the range high to low. So if you draw optimal trade entries for both small and big ranges, you'll see that all pointing the same zone. At this point, you can enter a trade actually as a high time frame entry. You have an entry and a clear target. But let's open 1 minute charts and focus on sniper entries that you can actually make. Again, we'll focus on this particular area to find a clear entry. Let's see. Can you see it? This extremely clear market structure break changes the 1 minute trend direction. And the mitigation block right above provides you with the best entry point. If you again use your optimal trade entry tool, you'll see how many structures collide. As you know, you can use the OTE in any time frame, 1 month, 1 week, 1 day, or 1 minute. It does not matter. It is universal. At this point, you can see this could have been the most amazing trade of our lives, the best of the best snipers. The problem is I missed this entry. I was working on something else. The good thing is another great structure showed up for my entry. Now let's see that. Okay, if you miss entries, do not feel lost. Wait for other structures to show up. Trading never ends. There is always a chance. Now I want you to look closely here. How the equal lows formed right below. And right after that, there is this incredible imbalance. So this is like targets inside targets. What else do we have here? Another small engineering, forming small liquidity. And the imbalance, and another mitigation block. Wow, all the same things again and again. Believe me, once you repeat this 1,000 times, you'll be amazed with the results. All this keep happening every single minute, every single day. Now, this was my entry. Yes, I missed the most stunning sniper entry above, but I got the next one. If you miss entries, always wait for the second one. It will come, do not worry. However, I have to admit, I was really afraid of the big imbalance above. This trade worked great, but it could have been a failure. If your trades fail, do not worry. Everybody will fail without any exception. Because the analysis we can do is infinite, and there's always something we'll miss. Okay folks, this was a great trade recap for scalping and day trading with ranges. As you know, all these price action trading strategies can be used with any asset classes and financial securities. I hope you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you, please take care and see you soon.